This was very impromptu. I wasn't expecting to join a live stream as I had already recreationally partaken that evening. We did have some technical problems, but I think you'll enjoy the exchange. Now, I realize broken system, broken trust, Joshua, has been the subject of many videos. Some involve personal attacks, and some, like mine, attack his arguments. Joshua interviewed me in a question and answer style. To me, he was civil and respectful, and in my opinion, we had a productive dialogue. Now, you will see and hear him mention a Joe Pierce, also known as oratorical prowess. I will be doing some videos on him in the future. He considers himself a guru. Yeah, I hear you fine. We got a delay.
Okay, I think we just have a delay. Yeah, I can hear you.
You're breaking up.
Yeah, maybe I'll redo my microphone. And I think, Juan, I think we have a little bit of a delay as well. So if you can just give it a second to respond or whatever. But how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. How are you? Was that long enough?
that worked. That really worked. So I am doing excellent, sir. I appreciate you coming up.
So you have a problem with me feeding the poor in my community?
I never said that.
Well, I was just wondering. You babbled on for a while, and while I was trying to come in here, and I didn't really hear all of it. So, and it sounded like a semi-attack, but no problem.
Actually, what I said is is that true? Or if it's not true, if it's true, then that's wonderful that you.
Well, it varies from year to year. It's usually between 50 and 70. I have a big ranch. I raise a lot of beef and a lot of pork, and I work with the butcher, and I raise a lot of turkeys, and I work with the butcher every year, and I feed the poor in my community.
Is one of the turkeys on your ranch, is one of those turkeys named Broken System, Broken Trust?
I would not do that to the poor thing.
That couldn't have been a better. Anyways, I just want to share. I mean, I've never had a chance to talk to you, and I actually had a tremendous amount of respect for you until I started seeing some of the ad hom attacks that you were giving me and a couple of things. And I got to say, I was very disappointed. I was very, very disappointed. So would you like to respond to that?
Sure. When I produce videos, I entertain and turn it into a kangaroo thing. I think you can relate to that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So, I mean, I try to gauge, I thought that's treatment purposes where we can kind of both have a laugh, or if it's somebody that's really just trying to hit below the belt and trying to just really smear me, or trying to really do it in in more of a, derogatory way. Does that make sense?
Sure, and I can understand where you come from. I prefer the term ultracrepidarian, but most people don't know what that is. And that just means somebody who's talking on a subject that they're not fully educated or knowledgeable in.
Well, and now, Mr. Galt, have I ever once claimed to be an expert on law or...
Well, by the way, you're still cutting in and out. I wasn't making or saying that you made any claims.
Okay.
I'm making an observation.
Okay. That observation, have I ever wanted to claim that I am just incredibly gifted with intelligence, or I have a tremendous amount of legal experience, or that I'm a lawyer, or that I've done like enough to take a bar exam in the past? Have I ever made any sort of wild claim like that?
Again, I haven't said you've made any claim. I've listened to what you say in court and how you present yourself and how you try to make legal points, if you will, and you're totally way off base, and you show a certain amount of lack of knowledge. It has nothing to do with your claim, claiming that you've made a claim. I'm not making that claim. I'm just giving my professional analysis of a lay person in court trying to be or play like an attorney. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, so why do I get judges to fumble over their words and kind of, it's, we've heard of courts, but before the whole traffic court and stuff like that, I had two judges that I had cases before where I got the charges dismissed. Are you aware of that?
No.
No? Okay, so does Does that make me sound a little bit more credible when I tell you I've been in front of 2 other judges before, and the first judge stuttered and could not remember her words properly, and then the second judge told me everything I was bringing up was fair, and he upheld every objection that I had, and then he actually said, when I said, "Hey, I would like to see proof of factual fiction, is that a fair question?" He said, "Yes, it's fair."
Okay, let me see if I can answer those one at a time or whatever. First of all, I've been in front of thousands of judges at all levels of courts in the United States court system. And there are very succinct, on point, quick judges. And there's the type that you are describing. A lot of times those judges are at the very low level municipal courts, if you will. So why a judge will say something, I couldn't tell you. It's just probably part of their nature. Why you got dismissed? I would have to, I'm getting one side of the story, and for the truth, there's 2 sides to a story, and then there's the truth. So I don't know why they were dismissed. I haven't seen any evidence of why they were dismissed. So, I really can't speak to that.
Well, if you're ever interested, or if anybody in the audience is ever interested in, the video is called How to Get a Case Dismissed, and it actually has the audio, because I record every conversation I have with the public servant, whether that is a public defender, whether that's a prosecutor, whether that's a judge, anybody that is in a public servant capacity, I will record the conversation or record the interaction. So I put it all out there unedited for the world to see, so the world can make up their own opinion. So when you ask me side, there's the truth in the middle, like, I give it to people unedited so that they can make up a decision for themselves. So is that fair?
Well, sure. It's more than fair. And
Okay.
I will,
So
I will
on
take,
these,
I will take,
on these, on the
I will
videos
take
I
your-
have on
I will take your suggestion and view the video.
Okay, I appreciate that. Because if all you've heard are the traffic, and of course, I do go off script, so it's not 100% scripted. But if anybody's interested, there's a gentleman with a website or a YouTube channel. It's Oratorical Prowess, and he goes through the script. It's in hand works because, of course, he caught on to some of the basic script. The Mark Stevens script was 5 questions. Now it's up to, I think, about 14 or 16 questions on the script. But you can tell I go off script all the time, don't I, Juan?
Well, I can tell you that I've debated Joe Pierce, Oracle Prowess, or Ethics Extend, or whatever you want to call him. And he's just as wrong as Mark Stevens and you. Though that script is, in a real court, is worthless. It's way out of bounds of what's allowed in court. But I understand these guys like to spread their knowledge and like to tell things. Mark Stevens and Oratorical Prowess, they are trying to make a legal argument out of their political philosophy. And it's very apparent, and it's very easy to see, and it's very easy to debunk. So I've had a lot of experience. I've had years of experience with Ethics Instead, or Joe Pierce, whatever you want to call him.
Yeah. And I haven't heard any of those interviews. I'd be extremely intrigued and curious to know how those came out, because from my experience with Ethics Instead or Oratorical Prowess, and I've never met the guy. All I've done is listen to the videos. Typically, ask questions, Socratic method of investigation to ask questions. So to me, it's a surprise that he would be making false claims, because he really does a phenomenal job, as far as I can tell, of avoiding making claims and versus asking questions. And of course, if for anybody who doesn't understand the Socratic method of investigation, it's a method that was developed by Socrates to get to the truth of a matter. And it basically follows a trail of logic that gets you to the truth with simple clarifications and simple questions to ask. So to me, it's surprising that he would ever gone format. So I'm very curious. I've not heard the recordings, and I'm not telling you that I don't believe you. I'm just saying, if that's true, that you've debated him and that you've won, or that you've destroyed his arguments, to me, I've listened to his recordings, and I know he really does a good job at asking questions versus making claims. So how can you win a debate with somebody that asks questions?
Oh, good. I'm glad you brought up the Socratic method. That's one of their fallacies. First of all, the Socratic questioning, or method, is not applicable in court. Now, why is it? Because the Socratic method, according to Socrates, was to not ask questions about certain facts, but to ask questions about how do you feel about those things? What do you think about them? Okay. In court, questioning is about a certain event and what you're eliciting fact of what a certain event. You don't ask them, how did that make you feel? That's the Socratic method. That's why Joe Pierce and Mark Stevens and everybody has misinterpreted the Socratic method. The Socratic method is to challenge critical thinking, to make you think about why you believe a certain thing. Like, why do you believe in God? Or why do you believe in this? It has no place in a court of law. I hope that makes it clear.
Well, I mean, I understand where you're coming from, and I understand that point of view, because a courtroom is usually a place for facts and not for feelings, so I understand what you're saying about that. What I have trouble following, though, is like, how is asking questions about, that you're supposed to play in law, how is asking questions and clarifications about the rules, how is that a philosophy on law?
Well, it depends on the context of your question. Now, if you're asking the questions like, well, Judge, why is that law? Why would that law apply to me? That's a philosophical question in a court of law, because it's a court of law, and the law applies to you because there is a law saying so. Now, it's that is why that's the question.
Well, but what is a law, though? What is a law? Because you realize that you've got universal law, then you've got common law, then you've got federal law, then you've got state statutory law, then you've got your local laws on your local municipality level. So, to me, what I find fascinating about law is if it's true from universal law, common law, all the way down to federal law, statutory law, then local laws, then it's true all violates any one of those 5 levels, then you've got to start asking questions. Does that make sense?
Well, what you're doing is you're not making legal arguments. You're making philosophical arguments.
Well,
what
is
law?
law?
Hold it.
Yeah.
What is law, sir, is a philosophical question. Look it up. I don't know if you've studied philosophy. Well, I've studied philosophy for years, sir, especially political philosophy. I have a degree in political philosophy.
Well, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate the intelligence that you bring to the conversation, because these are the types of conversations we prefer to have on this channel rather than the low blow ad hominem attacks. I actually appreciate an intelligent opinion on something, and I actually appreciate that. So if I've dabbled in philosophy, I've not gone in depth with philosophy very much. I mean, I know the basics about philosophy, and that's about it. But I guess what I'm trying to say is a law. If you're talking about law from a scientific standpoint, a law works the same here on Earth as it does on Jupiter. Or, like, for example, the law of gravity. It works the same here on Earth as it would in Jupiter, as it does on the sun, as it does in a distant galaxy far, far away. That law of gravity works the same there as it does here. That's why it's
no, it doesn't.
Law, quote unquote law, LAW.
Gravity
works. The law of gravity doesn't work the same anywhere else in the universe.
That's right. You're heavier on Earth than you are on the moon. It operates differently. You weigh differently.
Right. But the law of gravity, yeah.
Well, nobody. The thing is,
sir, yeah. But what I'm
Joshua. Nobody knows what causes gravity. It's a theory. Okay, but I agree with you that it's a scientific law. They can't explain it, but it's a scientific law. But that's law in a different context. Okay. When you're in court, you're in the context of law within that discipline.
But that's why I'm saying. Look,
did I lose you?
Sorry, no. I thought between the delay. I think we have like a slight delay between you and I. So of course, I probably interrupted, which I should apologize for interrupting. But when I do that sometimes, and then I think with the delay, it kind of derails what we're saying. So, but please continue. I kind of cut you off, and you were talking about the law, and in one sense, the scientific sense versus what we were talking about with the law. So, if you could continue on there.
Yeah, it's each law that you were talking about, scientific law. That's a completely different discipline. Every discipline of study has their own rules and the way they arrive at certain conclusions. A scientific way is completely different than a reaching a conclusion in law. The path and the way, the evidence and the way you conduct your experiment, if you will, or your argument is completely different. Just like an academic debate has completely different rules than, let's say, a debate in court. So each discipline has different words that they use called terms of art, different words. In law, it's called legalese. In medicine, they have their own
language that they use. In engineering, they have their own language. So, that's why I'm saying each discipline, and you can't try to say, well, because scientific law is always universal. Yeah, well, scientific law in that context does not deal with human nature. Law in the courtroom sense deals with human nature and tries to deal with the ever-changing humanity, whereas these universal laws, you say, are rather static and fixed. Humans are always evolving. They're dynamic. They're not static. And that's why law is always changing. That's why they say attorneys only practice law, because you can't perfect it, because it's always changing.
Okay, so let me ask you this question. Then, because I'm glad that you said that. So now, isn't it real easy for a system to turn corrupt and for people to profit off of frivolous lawsuits if it's so complicated and so convoluted? I mean, isn't it possible? Isn't it possible that we might be at a point in our history where the system has become so corrupt from people with the money that we might actually have to re-examine how it's operating right now?
Oh, okay. First of all, systems are not corrupt. Humans are corrupt. Governments don't do things. People do things. So yes, when you're dealing with humans, they're imperfect. You're going to have some corruption. You're going to have mistakes. When you deal with human institutions, you're going to have corruption. You're going to have mistakes, because humans are not infallible. That is why. I hope that helps. Over.
Well, yeah. I mean, again, for anybody that may be just coming in to the stream, I had an Mr. Gall. Really appreciate anybody in the chat that's asked questions. I hope you understand. I'm not trying to debate with Mr. Gall. I'm actually trying to pick his brain, and I actually appreciate the knowledge that the man is bringing to this conversation. So there's no mic drop moments here. There's no he's getting the best of me. I actually am here simply to pick his brain. So I hope people in the chat understand that. Is that I'm not here to try to get one over on Mr. Gall. I am actually here to just ask him some simple questions and get his take on certain things. So is that fair to say, Mr. Galt? And then I'll give you my next question.
Sure. And let me just say, you can call me Juan. Mr. I don't go very well with that. But, your people should know I'm here giving you some free, real, legal information that I paid, that I paid a lot of money, and I went to the top law school in the country, Yale. And, so, and I've been all the way to Supreme Court, been involved in some very famous cases. They're talked about all the time on the news and stuff like that. Every time there's a presidential election, these cases are brought up. And so, I'm not here to change your minds or to degrade you or disparage you. I'm trying to tell you how it really works in the area you're trying to go into, or that you're in the middle of right now. And I'm trying to give you some insight of why some things may happen the way they do.
Well, and over. I certainly appreciate that. I certainly appreciate that, and I certainly feel like a very good offering that. So what I'm trying to say for my next question is, do you have any background, or do you understand common law, universal law, or any of the people that practice the common law or the universal law side of things? And what is your take on the people that are in those disciplines?
Okay, first of all, the universal law, as far as I'm concerned, that's a philosophical reign. Okay. As far as law goes, I am a devout law of nature guy. I'm a devout common law guy, I guess, because the United States legal system is based on the common law. So, and I've been in it for over 40 years. So I guess you could say I'm also a fan of common law. I hope that answers your question. Over.
Yeah, no, actually it does. I mean, and actually a lot of people I don't think know that 49 out of the 50 states still practice common. Doesn't is the state of Louisiana that doesn't recognize common law as the law of the land. So why, in your opinion, do you think common law and statutory law are from, at least from what I can tell and from what I've studied, those two disciplines are so far apart right now? I think that is, or do you think I've got that interpretation incorrect?
Okay. I've done, here again, I've read tons of treatises and everything else on common law, natural law, and things like that. How to phrase this? I'm sorry, dude. Can you ask me your question again? I apologize. Over.
Oh, that's okay. I was saying, from what I can tell from the common law side of things and statutory law, and people that are in
Okay.
one
I'm sorry.
camp. Yeah.
I got. I'm sorry. I got it. Yeah. Okay. Now, why do we have statutory law in the United States? We adopted the common law from England here, but the founders didn't like the common law for the main reason that it's judge-made law. In other words, whatever the judges ruled would become law. And in and our founders had lived under that common law for their lives, and they didn't find it to be the best for our country, because in our country they wanted the government to be of the people, by the people, and for the people, and they wanted the people to elect the people who made the law, i.e. Congress and the Senate. So I mean the House and the Senate. So that's why we have statutory law, and statutory law is nothing more than legislative made law. And that's why we have it, because if we don't like the law, we can then lobby the people, or we can kick them out of office. And that was the rationale that the founders used. And that's why we didn't go with strictly common law. Over.
Yeah. And I think, you and I both kind of have that understanding, or at least I have a basic understanding of that at this point. But I guess my question is more focused on does it seem like there's a bigger divide between the common law discipline and the statutory law discipline, in your opinion, or am I reading that wrong?
I believe you're reading it wrong. From my experience of being, in the law, yeah, I think you're reading it wrong. Over.
Do you pay attention to any of the Christopher James stuff or Alphonse Fagiola? Do you pay attention to those guys?
I really don't pay a whole lot of attention to a lot of pseudo lawyers. Every once in a while, one of them will come across my radar, and what they're saying may drive me to try to correct their misinterpretations. But no, I haven't heard of those guys.
Okay, because I belong to the Telegram groups with those guys. Christopher dates, like actual court dates, where people go in and use the common law and basically run the court, because what people don't understand, that don't pay attention to this topic very, very closely, is, when you are in a court of law, you're supposed to have two opposing parties that have a controversy, and then the judge is supposed to be the fair and impartial member in the middle that's there to basically referee the two parties in controversy. And what it's turned into in the United States is two parties against the poor defendant, beating up on the defendant, prosecuting the defendant. And what common law tries to do is it tries to turn it back into the two parties that are in controversy. And if there's a state or a corporation or a fictional entity, quote unquote, what they call a fictional entity, on the other side of the table, they say that you've got no legal standing. That's those guys. It's pretty convincing from what I can tell. Can you speak on that?
Yeah, I could, but you roboted a lot, so I kind of missed a lot, but I think I got the gist. And
Okay.
they're from what I heard, I think they're incorrect, but why don't you repeat it and see if I'm wrong?
Okay, all right. Well, and unfortunately, I can only go until 10 o'clock tonight because I have to get off here at 10, Mr. Galt. But just if I could just real quick in the last 7 minutes that we've got before I've got to get off here, I just want you to know that I've really appreciated the conversation to this point. I hope you have as well. And I think we're having some meaningful discussion here. And I would like to continue this. If we get caught 10 o'clock, would you be willing to come back on a different night?
Sure, man. I mean, I can tell you've got some intelligence, okay? I can tell you've got the makings and the aptitude. You've just got the bad information. That's all I'm saying. You can comprehend it, but you're so focused on the misinformation, it's hard to get through to you. But I would love to come back.
Oh, hello?
Hello, I'm here.
Did I lose you? Oh, okay, sorry. You cut out at the beginning part of that, but yeah, I think my audio is kind of bad as from what some people in the chat are saying. I've got some new microphones and some gear that I can load up, and maybe we can do a better stream at a later time. But I certainly appreciate you saying that, Mr. Galt. And again, I'm not here to try to bash on anybody too bad, and I'm not here to really try to be the know-it-all. I'm really just curious about a lot of things in life, and I have a lot of questions. So I hope you understand that about me. This is kind of the real me. That's authentic me. I mean, I do the playing around with these guys. I always have lighthearted fun with them, but it seems like they have nothing but derogatory and hurtful things to say to me all the time. So I'm just not interested in engaging with them. But you, sir, I'd be interested in having a conversation.
Anytime. I'm always willing to give, my vast amount of knowledge that I have. I'm retired now, so I have plenty of time, and I kind of, I my whole thing is I've been fighting the government overreach for years. I've been speaking against some of SCOTUS decisions for years. So yeah, invite me back anytime, dude. I'd be happy to be here.
Okay, and just as a preview to the next time we can have a conversation, can you give me just one Supreme Court decision that bothers you the most, or one, because you said you were standing against government overreach. What is the one Supreme Court case that you would like to be opposed to or like to draw more attention to? Can you tell me that?
Yeah. Oh shit! If I can remember the name, I'm 73 years old. So sometimes this.
Yeah. I didn't mean to put you on the spot either. I didn't.
Since my break, but it was a case back after the war, and this farmer was growing wheat, and the government came in and said, "Oh, you're affecting interstate commerce, so you got to get rid of your wheat that you're growing for your consumption." And I have that was an expansion on the Commerce Clause that just has drove me crazy. And luckily, in my career, I was able, in U.S. v. Lopez, was able to almost rewrite that part of the Commerce Clause. And so that was the one that I had a problem, but there's still some problems with that issue. And if anybody wants to know, one of my famous cases on the Second Amendment is DC versus Heller. That's the one that everybody talks about when somebody runs for president. Are you gonna repeal that?
Yeah. And on the Second Amendment, few people may know this, but the word shall actually means optional in legalese. So when the Second Amendment was written, it was almost written in a way by the founding fathers to be optional. Shall not be infringed. You must not infringe on this right, and it actually diverts the federal powers back to the state as well. So I found that very interesting about the Second Amendment. Did I have that interpretation correct?
Well, not totally, because shall can mean different things depending on how it's being used and the people using it, called intent of legislative intent.
Right.
Because if a state says shall in our state will mean this, then that's what it means. But you are absolutely correct. By and large, the term shall is voluntary, if you will.
Well, thank you for that, and I appreciate you confirming that, Mr. Galt. It was a pleasure. We have to run. We have to end the show. But Mr. Galt, your email was in the abduction. If you could just email me so I could chat with you, and maybe we can set this up at a time that's better for both of us. But I honestly really appreciate the chat, and I appreciate the discussion. It's a pleasure to be with Mr. Galt.